Anchoring is a behavioral economic principle that explains the tendency we all have of latching onto an idea or fact and using it as a reference point for future decisions.
An example of anchoring was when 500 students were asked to guess the year of Attila the Hun's defeat. Students got a random number between 400 and 1399. This was their anchor. When the number ranged between 400 and 599, their average guess was that Attila had been defeated in AD 629, but when the number they got was between 1200 and 1399, they guessed AD 988. The students knew the benchmark number they had arrived at was meaningless, but it still affected their guess. The more recent the date, the more recent their estimated year of Attila's defeat, which actually occurred in AD 451.
Anchoring can be particularly powerful because you often have no idea that such a phenomenon is affecting you. It is important to study because it reveals to us our own tendencies and allows us to become aware of times when we may be influenced by a price anchor. Recognition of this tendency can help us personally avoid the negative effects of anchoring or alternatively to take advantage of the tendency in others. We decided to do our own anchoring experiment to see if a random anchor would influence the prices that people were willing to pay for certain items.
For our experimental procedure, each participant was given one of two different charts, a control chart in order to see what the maximum price people would be willing to pay without a given anchor, and an experimental chart where we gave the participant a random anchor between 1 and 99. For the experimental chart, we asked people to take their given number and write it as a price in the first column for each of 7 products. This would support the concept of arbitrary coherence, which is when a random initial price influences present and future prices. Next, we asked them if they would pay this random price for the item. Finally, in the last column, we asked them what the maximum amount they were willing to pay for the product would be. We hypothesized that higher anchors would lead people to be willing to pay higher prices, and lower anchors would lead people to be willing to pay lower prices.
We grouped the anchors into 5 different brackets, 1 to 20, 21 to 40, etc. up to 99, and then calculated the average maximum price for each item within each bracket. Based on the averages, it appeared that the average maximum prices in the last bracket were significantly higher than the average maximum prices in the first bracket. We also calculated the average prices for the control group, which, without an anchor price given, did not match up with any particular price bracket.
In order to confirm our hypothesis, we took the maximum prices from every bracket and found the correlation coefficients for each individual anchor given. A correlation coefficient, or R-value, can range from -1 to 1. As the R-value approaches +1, it indicates a stronger positive correlation, meaning that as the anchor price goes up, the maximum price people would pay for a certain product would also go up. All of our correlations were positive, thus supporting our hypothesis.
We made graphs of each of the items with the anchor on the x-axis and the maximum price they would pay for the item on the y-axis. The product with the strongest correlation was the Under Armour backpack with an R-value of 0.48.
We based our experiment off of an experiment designed and run by professor and behavioral economist Dan Ariely. In his experiment, the last 2 digits of Social Security numbers were used as the anchors. He used different products, but his results were similar to ours when it came to the correlations. The main way in which our results were different from his was in the responses to the question we asked the participants after filling out the experiment chart.
Do you guys think that the maximum price you were willing to pay was influenced by the number you were given?
No. More by interest.
All 3 no's? All right.
Dan Ariely said that all of his participants quickly responded no way to the same question. In our experiment, we found that approximately half of the participants responded yes when asked the question.
Do you think that the maximum price you were willing to pay was influenced by the number you were given?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. A little bit. Yeah, I'd say yeah.
Okay. Whether or not you realize it, anchors can affect everything you buy. As Dan Ariely puts it, in life we are bombarded by prices. We see the manufacturer's suggested retail price for cars, lawnmowers, and coffee makers. We get the real estate agent spiel on local housing prices. But price tags by themselves are not necessarily anchors. They become anchors when we contemplate buying a product or service at that particular price. That's when the imprint is set. From then on, we are willing to accept a range of prices, but as with the pull of a bungee cord, we always refer back to the original anchor. Thus, the first anchor influences not only the immediate buying decision, but many others that follow.